Welcome to ISME Insights, the podcast from ISME People, a certified B Corp talent partner in marketing, CRM and digital. Each episode, we sit down with thought leaders, industry experts and entrepreneurs to explore the latest trends in the digital and marketing sector, as well as the wider world of business. Our goal is to share real-world stories and fresh perspectives that inspire business leaders to grow their organisations and for professionals to build their careers. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, I'm delighted today to be joined by the wonderful Meghan Davies. So Meghan is a fractional CMO, founder and co-host of the How to Be Happy at Work podcast. With over 2 decades of experience across startups and global tech brands, she helps businesses align sales and marketing strategies, build purposeful brands, and create happier, high-performing teams. She's also co-founder of Think Big, a community for founders championing inclusive people-first leadership. Thank you for joining us today, Meghan.
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. So we're going to take you back kind of to the beginning. You've built such a varied career, from scaling tech startups to founding communities and hosting your own podcast. How would you describe what drives you across all of that?
It's a really good first question. I think one of the key motivators for me is all around teamwork. So I believe in the power of team. I think it's so much more powerful than individuals. We are greater than the sum of our parts. And for me, it's all about collaboration, communication, and working together towards shared goals and objectives. And that's really, really important to me, that people feel part of a team. I think belonging is, such a key human need. And for me, across all of my career, I think teamwork has been the priority for me. And I think if you work as a team, you can really achieve your goals. And success comes once a team is strong and working together, all rowing in the same direction.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, because I think in this world of AI that we're heading into, it's funny that we're almost moving away from that human contact, which we all know we need. And I think nothing proved that more than the lockdowns in the pandemic, that connection is so important to us. And I really can't see that kind of ever changing. And I'm a massive believer in, you don't do things on your own. It's all about working as a team. So I can totally agree with everything you're saying there. So what inspired you to move into fractional CMO work? So I'm seeing this gain more and more popularity. What do you love most about working with founders at that pivotal sort of scale-up stage?
So I think for me, I love a bit of a bowl of spaghetti to unwind.
Analogy.
And I think lots of organisations could really do with including marketing at a strategic level, but they might not be at the stage where they have the budget to hire a full-time chief marketing officer or even marketing director. They may not have the kind of building blocks in place yet to get to that strategic level from a marketing perspective. So by working with a fractional CMO, they're able to maybe have somebody who comes in on a short-term contract, or they come in maybe for 2 or 3 days a week, something like that, which enables them to have that experienced marketing person on their team that can put those building blocks in place. Instead of, their other option is, budget-wise, they may be able to employ a full-time, more junior marketing person. And then that more junior marketing person sometimes ends up feeling a bit unsupported because they're the only person in the business that understands marketing. A marketing manager, for example, will really understand all the ins and outs of executing marketing campaigns, planning marketing campaigns often, but those junior marketing people might not be invited to a leadership meeting. So then you've got that disconnect between marketing and the overall strategic direction of a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the other thing that you're bringing to the organization that you're working with is that external perspective, which sometimes when you've been in an organization for a long time can be lost. Whereas if you've recently worked with another company or you're working with multiple companies at one time, you're getting, you're learning from those others. And there are other ways you can get that in business, in the sense of, being part of other communities and peer-to-peer groups and things like that. But I imagine that's really valuable to the companies that you then work with.
Yeah. A great friend of mine, Peter, talks about that goldfish bowl. He's like, you've got 3 months and
Yeah.
then it's not
Yeah.
even a long time. I
No,
don't even think
90
it's a long
days.
time. Like, it's 3 months and then you are just in the goldfish bowl as well. So it's like
Yeah.
you're in a bubble, you're in an echo chamber, you're all believing what each other are saying. And it's interesting when you talked about AI earlier, like that's a real echo chamber as well. Like, I don't know about you, but my chat GPT just tells me I'm great all the time. And I don't need it to tell me I'm great. Like, you need that challenge. And
It's challenging.
often like that can happen when you don't have any external influence. Yeah.
That's so true. Because I can put in, even when I've been preparing questions for podcasts, and it's going, what a great guest you've got. And it's
Yeah.
so uber positive. And I'm a very positive person. So I sort of like, okay, I'll bounce off of that. But yeah, you're right. We could lose perspective around that. I've not thought of that. Okay, so marketing still sometimes fights for credibility. I know we've discussed this before at board level. Why do you think it's still seen as tactical rather than strategic in some organisations?
I think the reality is that it's probably because it often is.
Mm-hmm.
And means that leaders, C-suite, for example, who haven't had that experience of strategic marketing in their careers, they've only had experience of tactical marketing. It kind of just perpetuates itself because then they don't view it strategically. So there'll be a meeting. It might be about, okay, what's the strategic direction we're going to take next year? I mean, it's October. Lots of organizations are having those Q1 meetings at the moment, like they're, planning for Q1 next year. And, they'll say, okay, we've decided we're going to go after these new markets. We're going to build this particular account. We're going to sunset this particular account, whatever it is, if they're having a strategic sort of sales-led conversation. And often what will happen is after that, they'll say, okay, well, we better tell marketing. I mean, that's if you're lucky, like if they remember to tell marketing.
Recruitment, I can say, is also like that.
Is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like, okay, so we better tell marketing. So, and it might even be, we need them to run some campaigns around this. It's good if there's that connection, but it's just that marketing wasn't in the room in the first place. And if marketing were in the room in the first place, that means that you can then build your entire strategy incorporating marketing. Marketing are often the sorts of personalities of people who are in marketing are connectors. They connect the dots. And so it's really valuable to have them in the room early on because they can connect the dots between what's happening in tech, what's happening in product, what's happening in sales, what kind of events are coming up, what are the market trends. They can make those connections and actually input into the strategy themselves as well, rather than just being that sort of, oh, we better tell marketing to put some posts on LinkedIn about it. I just think it's really valuable to include marketing as early on as you possibly can.
Yeah. What do you think needs to change, both from the marketeers themselves and from CEOs, for marketing to be viewed as a true growth and strategy function?
I think it probably needs to not be named as an individual department. I think for me, it's the siloed nature of the marketing department. And a lot of the times, a lot of the companies that I've worked both in-house and as a consultant, as a fractional CMO or as a marketing director, actually within the company itself, has started off with that, okay, that's sales, that's marketing, that's customer success, that's delivery, that's product. Like it's all just, and you've got the heads of, and if you're lucky, the heads of will talk to each other often heads of meetings are often updates. So they all update each other, an operational heads of team will all update each other on what's happening in their individual departments. And it's often started like that, but we have progressed it to be actually a whole go-to-market team, which actually incorporates all of those, somebody from all of those different teams. And it kind of goes back to that original point around teamwork. It's who do you need to create a go-to-market team? So marketing isn't really its own department. It's not siloed. It's part of a whole team. I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's not just marketing that's sometimes left. There can be so many parts of an organisation that can be separated, particularly if there are areas that it's hard to measure the return on investment of those particular departments. Moving on. So when you join a business as a fractional CMO, how do you try and reframe marketing's role so it's part of that big commercial conversation, not just the campaign plan?
Yeah, I think it's about working out where marketing can be supportive to different functions. So it usually starts with the sales team because it's the easiest. Well, it's not the easiest. That's not true. Maybe it's the most obvious collaboration. And it's probably where you should start, to be honest. You've got to make sure that sales and marketing are working together. And then often it's a bit of an education. So it's a bit of an education as to what marketing can be. Because, as we said earlier, often it can be sort of, we better tell the marketing team so they can put it in their LinkedIn plan, or, or marketing will be running sort of, we better go to this event, or we'll send the salesperson to an event, or, so it can just be sort of the marketing team have got great ideas and are running them themselves. And they might be pulling the sales team in and saying, okay, we're going to this industry event next week and we're going to send you. But then it's not kind of an integrated plan. So that salesperson might actually know of a different event that's better, but they're just not having that conversation with each other. So it's sort of like initially it's that education piece of this is what marketing can do for you. These are all the things that we can help with. Yeah. But by the way, marketing does not exist to be at sales beck and call. That's not the deal. And if that is the deal in this particular organisation, we're going to be probably stopping that quite soon. And it's a partnership and it's balanced and it's equal. And sales need to help marketing and marketing need to help sales. And ultimately, we need to set some common strategic goals. This is where we're going to get together. And it's not about individual KPIs, really. It's about shared goals and objectives.
Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing you've probably had some pushback from that when you first got into organisations. It's a change, and salespeople can be some of the the hardest people to convince and take on that journey. But I guess you've had some successes as well.
Yeah, I think my favourite ones are when the sales team are like, "What?" That's my favourite. Yeah. I mean, if it was easier, it would be exciting and fun, would it?
No.
So,
exactly.
I mean, just definitely had those moments of like, I don't think so. But then, it's just absolutely brilliant sort of, a couple of months down the line when you're in a meeting and you've got a salesperson pitching for marketing involvement, or, it's a wider team conversation and you've got a salesperson who's got your back and they're saying, yeah, we must make sure marketing's involved in that. And you're just like, oh. It's brilliant when that happens. Yeah.
I think salespeople can sometimes be a bit suspicious, can't they? And kind of just wonder how you're going to help them, what you're going to take away from them. And actually all you're doing is trying to support the role that they have. So you've written, it was kind of, leads us on to this actually. You've written about the friction that can exist between those marketing and sales team. What do you think the root cause is of that disconnect?
So I think it is probably a misunderstanding of each other's priorities and feeling like a bit of maybe it's a mismatch. Mm-hmm. There can be also frustration around like generation. So this, I'm sure that anybody who's listening to this who is in either a sales team or a marketing team will recognize this frustration around, marketing is supposed to generate leads and the sales team will, get cross because the leads might not be the quality that the sales team want. And so then it leads to, well, marketing are rubbish. And then it leads to, well, sales expectations are too high. And there's that mismatch of expectations. And instead, if you went at it together and you said, okay, tell me your target list. Who are they? What do they care about? What keeps them up at 3 a.m.? All the sort of questions. Okay, together, we're going to go after them. So it's a sales approach and it's a marketing approach at the same time. And we've set that strategy together. So you can't really then blame each other because you're both going at the same goal together. So I think it's probably that. I think it's a mismatch of expectations. And there is an opportunity to work together hand in hand to go after what you both want, basically, which is, generate more business, generate more revenue. And I really believe that marketing should also be measured on that, and not just measured on the very, very top of the funnel. I think, what did marketing contribute to the bottom of the funnel this year, I think is a really important question.
Are you seeing that more and more in companies now? Because I know there's, real focus on the kind of data driven marketing and looking at kind of, what data is coming out of it and being able to really look at that return on investment. Are you seeing that more, and therefore that's perhaps helping with that kind of relationship and understanding from sales as to how they need marketing?
Yeah, I do think that we do have more data and we're more focused on data. I would always still choose real impact over data. So I think that's the only worry for me, is this whole kind of report. We've got a whole reporting dashboard of this, this, that, and the other. And you just get you get a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of data that there is. And just because there's a lot of data, if you're not closing any deals, thanks to all of that, then it's all pointless anyway. So I think
and something's not working.
I think we've got to be really careful with over reporting, because I also just think if you spend, if I've got a whole week of time, do you want me to spend 2 days of that week reporting, or do you want me to spend 2 weeks of that strategizing and making sure that we are going in the right direction? I think that is my a little bit. Sometimes there's a little bit of over reporting, and then it's just it's a bit of a tick box exercise. Well, I've reported all the data. Okay, but what does it actually mean?
Okay. No, fair enough. Can you share an example of where aligning the two, as in sales and marketing, created a bit of a turning point in a business?
Yeah, I can. And it goes back to that joint plan piece. And it's, I always say sales and marketing should finish each other's sentences. And I worked with an amazing sales director. I was the marketing director. He was the sales director. And it was kind of like a sort of ideal. I mean, we did argue, don't get me wrong, but in a really positive, challenging way.
That's healthy. I think you need to be able to.
And we got ourselves the nicknames Bert and Ernie. So, I mean, and what we did was, instead of, just having once a week where the marketing team would update the sales team as what was happening and vice versa, which is a good practice, of course. But instead of just doing that, we sat down and we said, okay, we tried to understand each other's worlds as well as we could. And I remember saying, just tell me everything that you know about those accounts. And I got to know the accounts, the target accounts, the current clients that we wanted to grow, as well as he and his team did, which meant that everything that we did from a marketing perspective was really aligned with the sales strategy. Right. And so we could have been interchangeable, actually. One of us could have, gone on holiday, and the other one could have run each other's teams, because it was run each other's day to day, because we just understood each other's goals so well, because they were the same goals. And so, and we embarked on, this was pre-pandemic, we embarked on a Europe-wide strategy, which involved the pair of us and, other people as well in the team would come with us as well. But we went round Europe on a bit of a road show, getting to know our customers, we were working with channel partners, so they were selling our services on, getting to know how they were motivated, working with them on different marketing campaigns, things like video and the events and all of that. But it was also with a sales focus as well. We were getting out there selling, and it just worked really well. I mean, it wasn't perfect. We learned as we went, and we went to a lot of different events. But I feel like we were finishing each other's sentences, and it was such a positive working relationship that everybody kind of wanted to be on our team because we were fun and, we looked like we were having a nice time, which we were. So, I think it's that shared goals, shared plan, go after it together.
Also, I think what I take from that is you were two senior people in the organisation that were running those departments, and the fact that you had formed that really, positive sort of working relationship will have dripped down into the rest of those teams. So they would have, you were leading by example, they will have seen that and they will mirror those behaviours. So, that's probably also something to take from that. It's starting it at the top, that's so critical, that those relationships at kind of board level are that C-suite level, they need to be working together. Like you say, you're not always going to agree and not always going to, have the same points of view. And that's really, really healthy. But you've got to find that collaborative way to work together and create something positive.
It just sets the whole culture. We don't, we're not interested in working in a culture where sales and marketing are not collaborative. That's not the culture. So the culture is instead that we communicate, talk to each other, understand each other's priorities. Like, that's the culture. And so that's it then. And you say, you just set it.
Yeah, amazing. If you could design the perfect go-to-market relationship, what would it look like? Structure, mindset, metrics? You've probably touched upon some of that in what you've just answered, but I won't put words in your mouth. I can.
Yeah, I think it does need representation across the business. So not just sales and marketing. It needs representation from, and I'm used to working with tech organizations, so my response will be, focused on that really. But I do think it really needs representation from tech teams, so product team. And I'm a non-exec director for an organisation called Beeline, and what they do is they work with tech teams to help them become trusted advisors for sales teams, but also for clients. So I think it's really valuable when you have a really experienced, or actually they don't even need to be super experienced, but super passionate tech person who's really skilled and understands the product really well, understands the value and the benefits of the product. There's something really special about having that person in front of a client, where they can kind of quiz them, and the client is not feeling sold to, because it's a technical conversation rather than a sales pitch. And so becoming those kind of trusted advisors where the client really feels looked after, because they're able to just ask all of those questions. And especially if your technical person is really good at translating technical stuff into non-technical speak, that is absolute magical gold dust when that happens. And it doesn't just happen naturally. You have to give people experience and exposure to clients. And I think that's where marketing, for me, I'm probably going to go off on a bit of a tangent, so sorry, but for me, marketing can be a really good kind of testing ground for that. I remember when I was working with the amazing Arcasa team, and I would I would go to the solutions team and I would say, can you just draw me a diagram? Like, you're going to have to just talk to me like I'm 3, like just draw me a picture of what this product is. Because there's some really, Arcasa is it's an MVNO, so it's a mobile virtual network operator. So it's all about connecting anything that's not a mobile phone, but has a SIM card in it. So any
Okay.
devices that are connected to the internet but aren't a phone. So it could
Yeah.
be like a small monitor on the side of a machine in a factory floor or something that's monitoring vibrations and checking that the whole thing's going, the motor's working properly and all of that. Or it could be a little sensor on the inside of a freight, that's bananas across the globe, whatever it is. But there's quite a lot of complexity around that because you need different types of connectivity services for different parts of the globe or for different use cases. And so it was relatively technical. And so I'd just be like, you need to sit down and tell me what it is and draw pictures. And so I was a bit of a test bed for that, because I wasn't a technical person. I wasn't an engineer. So
Yeah.
that once they were getting used to kind of talking to me about that, I was like, right, do you want to go and stand up in front of like 100 people and talk about that? Okay, all right, go on then. And so then I think that's just really important. So, sorry, this is a very long answer, but my go-to-market kind of perfect team is not necessarily that technical. Sales and marketing people need to lean on the technical people as well, but bring them along for the journey, help them to understand the dynamics that the sales and marketing team are dealing with in market, but also listen to their technical expertise 100%. And how can you get them in front of customers? How can you upskill them in terms of talking to non-technical audiences? It's teamwork, basically.
Yeah. And that's so important. I think, when you kind of do a pitch, like a sales pitch and so that, and you do your 60 seconds or whatever, and then you can kind of complicate it. And I remember someone saying to me, how do you describe your job to a 5-year-old? Or how do you describe your job to someone you bump into in the pub? And it's taking it back to that kind of basic layman kind of terms so other people can understand. Because I'm not technically minded. I would need someone to explain it to me. Like, how would you explain this to a 3-year-old? So yeah, that's great. And then that probably really helped your audience. I mean, I'm sure some of the audience would be technically minded, but not all of them, not all of your kind of target customers would have been.
Sorry,
Yeah,
the only thing I was
that's
going
right.
to add to that was that it's so funny because non-technical people, which like you've just said I am too, like
Yeah,
non-technical people bucket technical people. Oh, they're technical, so they'll all understand all technical things. And that's not true. So it's
yeah.
like the technical person in your product team has still got to explain your product to another person who might be technically minded, but just hasn't come across that technology before. And they've still got to do it in a way that people understand.
Yeah, yeah, very true. So do you think the dynamic of like there's typically more men in like products and tech and some of the worlds that you've worked in, and traditionally more women in kind of a marketing team? Do you think that has an influence on how marketing voices are received in an organization, particularly in some of the sectors you've worked in?
Yeah, there's no getting away from the fact that the tech sector does have more men working in it than women. And just like you said, coupled with that, marketing as a function has more women working in it than men. So
Yeah.
that's a mismatch. It's not equal. I think it's interesting actually also to think about the personality types as well that
Mm.
exist. So I think, as I said earlier, in marketing, people who work in marketing generally are, people.
Yeah.
They're generally good at communication and they don't find it, difficult to communicate with other departments. They're, relatively, I don't know if you've done that kind of disc
So
profiling.
I'm literally thinking, so I'm a qualified disc practitioner.
Oh,
So
wow, are you?
yeah, no, and I'm there thinking like you've got your I's and your S's probably more in your marketing going into D, and then in your tech world you're going to have more of those C's, D's.
Yes,
Right, the other side.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I think that's just really interesting to know about. And I think if organizations are experiencing that slight friction, or do you know what? It can not even be friction. It can just be that they're not talking to each other. Like it's not even
Yeah.
a friction. Do you know what? Friction's actually preferable to just silence. Like, because if you,
Mhm.
often it can happen that you maybe have you try to get your customer facing team to talk to your product or engineering team and it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And then you can stop trying. Lots of organizations just stop trying because it's like, no, they're just not talking to each other. I'd actually prefer friction because at least there's a conversation happening. But if organizations are experiencing either of those two things, either friction or silence, doing that DISC profiling or something similar, I think really, really helps, because once you've done it, I've been through the process a couple of times and I find it really interesting. But once you go through that process, it helps you to understand other people. It's not so much about yourself, because I think you can kind of guess yourself. Like I'm literally 90% I and just ridiculous, but I could have told you that. So I didn't really need to know more about me because I kind of knew. No. But it's just so interesting to work out other people, not work it out, but be told like other people's motivators, what they need to have successful communication, what's important to them. And it's like, do you know what? That it's a personality difference, and we've just got to try and work this out. I just found it so helpful whenever we've done that as a whole team. So and I do think that it does go into gender stereotypes as well, but I think it's more a personality thing of like marketing people maybe just I don't know, I don't really want to use the word soft, but it kind of is like those softer skills, communication, collaboration, rather than those sort of more focused skills of, making sure that I can't even name the skills because I don't have them.
No.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I ran a DISC profiling workshop on a company a couple of months back in the summer, and it was a tech company, and they had a new CEO, so they were sort of all coming together as a newer team, and you get the real cynics in the room who will be like, I just don't believe this, I don't believe. But actually, as you work through it, it's seeing those kind of light bulb moments of like, this makes sense now. And that's why we've perhaps clashed here, because it's not because they're difficult, it's because they're looking at us in a different way. Or, if you've got an eye, I'm going off on a complete tangent talking about this, but it is really important for so many companies. You've got your eye who's just wanting to go a million miles an hour and is on board with that idea as soon as it's even mentioned. And then you've got your C that wants to ask a load of questions. And those two people kind of like, the C's looking at them going, you need to slow down. And the I's like, you need to keep up with me and, stop being so negative. But once they understand each other, they can be so much more productive.
Yeah. It can just be such a game changer, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we did go off on a tangent there, but hopefully a helpful one.
Yeah.
How can women in marketing assert their commercial credibility in those settings? And what can leaderships teams do to genuinely try and level that field?
I think going back to right at the beginning when we talked about marketing having a seat at the table, I think that's probably the first thing that needs to happen, is that a leadership team need to make room for a marketing person at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And really listen to them. I'm pretty sure that every single person who's worked in marketing, I don't think it matters what gender they are, can identify with the experience of being considered as, just the colouring in.
Yeah.
That has happened to anybody who's worked in marketing, will have felt that at some point. And you can get through that. It is possible to get through that bias or that that kind of initial judgment piece of eye rolling or marketing or just make it look pretty. And I think that when you realize, and I'm old and I've had a long career, so I know it's easy for me to say, and I really know that it's easy for me to say at this point. And I know that if somebody's just starting their career and they're being made to feel that marketing is just colouring, it feels shocking and not great. But it definitely is possible to make it through that. And it's almost like that challenge of it's a bit of a game sometimes to me, like the person who's the most vehemently saying, marketing and rolling their eyes, they're the one I'm going to convert. Like, I have got you. I really want to say a name now, and I know he would probably wouldn't mind, but I'm probably not going to. It's because we got there, right? This was a really technical person If he listens to it, he'll know it's him. Really technical salesperson, really experienced, no time for marketing whatsoever, was running big accounts, working with large organizations like Ericsson, no time for marketing. And I just was like, right, you're going to be my convert. I'm going to convince you of my value. And it wasn't that I was like trying to like, hey, please believe I'm great. I was consistently showing up. Can I just, I just want to make sure that I am there and he understands that my point of view is actually valuable. And it was, because marketing people have got a lot of value to bring to the table. And I think it's just consistently showing up and offering your thoughts, offering opinions, offering your insights that you've got from the market. And I just remember the moment where I got included in that senior call with Ericsson. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to need you on this call, Megs. I was like, oh, yes, you do. Yes, I've been trying to tell you that.
I've made it.
Here I am.
I've achieved what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely not just on marketing. It's definitely not just on women at all, but it is about consistently showing up. And I know it's easy to say, but not taking it personally, because they're not saying that you're not valuable. They just don't understand the value of marketing. And it isn't personal, because everybody listening to this who's ever been in marketing will have had the same experience. So trying to get that slightly tough skin, not take it personally, and just keep going. And I promise you it's possible, but it's hard.
Yeah. And I think that probably applies to so many different areas of business as well, because I can absolutely relate to that in what I do as well.
Yeah.
What common challenges are you hearing from founders and teams about leadership and well-being right now?
So I think teams are probably still struggling a bit with the remote work piece.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the main theme around, leaders saying, well, my teams are all working from home. I don't know how to engage them. And so I don't have any answers for this, by the way.
No.
But I do think that is probably one of the main themes that keeps cropping up. Gone are the days of cooking together, where we all did in the middle of COVID, and all quizzes or whatever. It's sort of just become just normal day-to-day life that a lot of people work from home. Maybe not all of the week, but certainly it's normal to work from home at least 2 days a week. And I think leaders are worrying about the impact of that on their team's well-being as well, and just on sort of team cohesion and engagement. Yeah, so I think probably remote work and people a lot more qualified than me are coming up with good ideas for how you can improve collaboration within your team if everybody's working in different places. I'm a big believer that remote teams can absolutely work, because you've got, you can include lots of different people who you might not be able to include if you insisted on everybody coming into the office. Your team can be much more diverse. It can be more interesting, but it does come with its challenges for sure.
Yeah. And actually, I thought about that earlier when you were talking about kind of getting those technical people on side and some of the challenges around that. And in my head, I was thinking, actually, in lots of organizations now, particularly those technical people, may be working from home. And therefore, does that become much harder and a slower win than when we were all in the office? I'm guessing potentially, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have this thing about, I have this thing with people who sort of say, oh, you've got to be back in the office because I really want, the value of like leaning over your shoulder and talking to your the person next to you is huge. And I don't want to miss out on that. So therefore everyone's got to be back in the office. But I always feel like people who say that are a certain personality type, or they've got a particular, they find that easy.
Yeah.
They find that valuable.
It works for them. Yeah,
it works for them. And I just think, not everybody's the same. You've got to try and work out how you can support an individual as much as the team. I just think, everybody's an individual, and as a team leader, that's your job to help them live their best life at work to contribute to the team in the best way. And that's different for every single person. Think like a blanket, well, we're all going to miss out because you can't turn your head and talk to the person next to you. I mean, the amount of times that I've walked into an office for a day's work and spent my whole day with my headphones in, either playing music because I can't concentrate because it's too noisy, or on calls. Like, it's like,
How are they actually? Well, I guess you could argue that they might listen to your calls and learn in that kind of respect, particularly with, I guess I'm thinking about my own job in that, but yeah, I think, I mean, I'm the opposite. I feel like when I go into an office environment, and I don't know whether this was my eye profile on the Dick Circle, is that I get really distracted and pulled into the conversation, which is a massive important part of culture in a business. So I have to almost accept that some of that time when I'm actually physically there is going to be those kind of water cooler kind of conversations that do also need to be had, but it's not going to be my most productive days work-wise.
Yes, yeah. And I think I also I love people, and I'm not very good at working from home full time at all, only because I love people so much. But
yeah,
I also love those moments actually that are not really work related when you get together. And I don't always believe that's going to the pub, because not everybody wants to go to the pub. And so you isolate people by only ever going to the pub. I do love the pub, but don't only
but it's
ever
not
go
for
to the pub.
everyone. And
No.
Yeah, we've got to be mindful of that.
And so being more imaginative and creative about those moments that are, not work related, but really do help cement the team, and putting that back to the team and asking different individuals what they would like to do. What does it mean to you to run a team building activity? And giving that responsibility to different personalities and different people, I think, is really important. Because if you've always got the marketing team, in charge of away days, then you're all just going to always be doing colouring in. I mean, I'm joking.
Yeah. Well, you talk a lot about emotional support as well. I've definitely seen it in your kind of LinkedIn posts. How does that show up when you're helping founders and teams through change in business?
So really, I think it's really key to remember the emotional impact of work on people. Leadership has an emotional impact on people. Some people don't ever want to be in a leadership role. They're not interested in doing that. They don't want to be a leader. However, I think that means that as a leader, you've got a real responsibility to those people, and you are an emotional support. You do need to provide an emotional support as a leader. That's the way I lead anyway. I mean, I don't think everybody does, but you've got a real responsibility to your team. And I think everybody can remember in their careers an example of a leader who understands their emotions and welcomes them and supports them through anything that means that emotions come up, which is, by the way, just life. And an example of a leader who doesn't. Everyone can remember those two examples of leaders. And I know the one that most people would say was a good leader. So I think that making space for emotion and trying to understand the impact of your leadership on people, even if it's like we said earlier, like that works for them, like even if it wouldn't have an emotional impact on you yourself, like even if you're maybe more resilient to a certain thing than somebody else, like understanding that there are different levels of resilience. Everybody's got different paths, everybody's got different experiences, everybody's got different things that trigger them or could be potentially traumatic for them if an experience kind of repeats it or mirrors a past event. Like just understanding that landscape and trying to be empathetic or supportive of that, I think, is really, really key. And I don't think it makes you soft. I think that it makes you a good leader if you can be emotionally supportive.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What excites you most about where marketing and leadership are heading in the next few years?
Well, I'm excited about the fact that more businesses are making space for marketing at the table. I think
Amazing. Yeah,
more businesses are seeing the power of brand. So there's
yeah.
lots of business. I mean, anybody who works in marketing or touches marketing in some way in their job at the moment will know that like algorithms are not our friends right now. Like LinkedIn's kind of
Yeah.
doing what LinkedIn's doing, and everyone's kind of tearing their hair out and say, "Oh, I thought I was going to be a thought leader on LinkedIn, and now they're not promoting organic reach, etc." So I think people are leaning into that kind of power of the brand. If your brand is strong and you focus on storytelling and you
Yeah.
make your customers the hero of those stories and all of that, I think people are realizing, and it's not just a consumer brand thing anymore. B2B can also do this. And I think that's really exciting to see that. Brands like Passion Fruit, the agency that's bringing marketing freelancers and connecting them with tech brands, like the way that they're doing marketing right now is super exciting. And yeah, so that for me is really interesting. And I think it comes from that sort of that whole fractional CMO thing as well. Like there are a lot more of us.
Yeah.
Organizations know what we do. They know that they understand the power of getting a senior marketing leader in, even if it's just for a couple of days a week. They're understanding that that's what they need to do. They need to invest in marketing a bit more, but not just, that doesn't just mean investing in campaigns. It means investing in strategic marketing and
Yeah.
integration of marketing with their wider go-to-market team. So yeah, there's definitely hope and optimism for me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more and more organisations doing that over the next few years.
If you could redesign the modern workplace from scratch, what three things would you bake in from day one?
It's not a small question, Kathy.
It's quite a big question.
I think I would bake in flexibility.
Right. Yeah.
Think we're still experiencing traditional ways of thinking about flexible working,
Yeah.
this whole sort of, well, you must be in the office 3 days a week. And, that's actually a bit of a nightmare for some people
Hmm.
who actually just need to go and do a quick school run at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the impact of not being able to do that is actually can be actually massive. Financially, it can be
Yeah.
massive. People who have to, I don't know. So let's say they've got a teenager and they need to go and do a quick school run at 3, and then they can just get back to work at 3:30 and
Yeah.
it's all fine. If the
My day
alternative
most days.
Yeah, exactly. The alternative is that you can't go and do that school run at 3. So you actually have to then pay somebody to have your teenager or get them into a club, or I don't know, it's just like there's a really quick fix to that.
Fix to that.
And
Absolutely.
it's just like a little bit of flexibility, but it just doesn't happen. Some companies just won't allow it. And I just like, or, I can't start work until 9. No, you've got to be in at 8:30. Okay, right. Then I'm going to have to pay for breakfast club. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about parents here, obviously,
Yeah. But
but
I mean, that's a massive chunk of the workforce.
yeah,
And even if it's not a parent, it's, a pet, it could be a dog, or it could
yeah,
be, I've got a guy who works for me and he will go home at lunch and walk the dog.
yeah,
But it's that flexibility and I think that companies are often still really traditionally hung up on the kind of 9 till 5:30 kind of working pattern.
yeah,
It's all about hours rather than output. And I've
yeah,
never been like that. I mean, I guess I was once upon a time, but since I've had a business, I haven't been like that, in the sense of it's more about, right, okay, if you're delivering what you need to deliver, that's fine.
yes,
Because is
exactly.
it fair that someone else is super hyper focused and productive and works solidly for 4 hours, whereas someone else needs to kind of go and have breaks and movement breaks? Neurodiversity is discussed more and more now, and actually we need to adapt the working patterns for different types of people. And I
Yeah,
think that although it is talked about a lot, I see it all the time when I'm hiring for companies that people are, are not. I've got lots of clients that aren't hung up about this, but I still see examples of people that are fixated on those hours and have
Yes.
no flexibility to shift that and miss out on really great people working for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you make a really good point around different personality types and neurodiversity as well. And like, just, I think so flexibility is one of them, but then also that maybe flexibility is also number two in the
Yeah.
sense of like working styles. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily being in the office or not. It's more about, like you say, like understanding that some people just, it doesn't help them to sit at a desk all day. And so, what would I do if I was redesigning the modern workplace? I would design roles for people that helped, that they could really flourish in. And it's like not, it's that whole thing about roles and responsibilities and job spec. And, some people really like that. And other people, and I will say I'm one of them, I can't remember what my job spec says.
Yeah.
Like, because,
It
I'm
evolved and
I'm also doing
Yeah.
all of these other things. And I don't mind about that because I'm,
No.
I'm happy with that. And, generally, the people who have worked with, oh, yeah, that's absolutely fine. You've got your, working out all of those different things as well, and working different departments and teams. But, it's almost like flexibility in your rules or your frameworks, creating roles for people that really do help them to live their best life at work. I really believe that that's true. And then I think the third one would be, I can't believe I've had flexibility for the first two, but never mind. The third one would be, it would be around like the teamwork and the hearing the voices and, making sure that there are processes in place, and whether that's a meeting or, some kind of other process where you're able to kind of input something with technology around hearing the voices that you've got across your team. It shouldn't be the case that the only people whose voices get heard are the people who are sitting around a boardroom table. Like, you've got to try and work out how to hear those voices because, it's so valuable and so much magic comes from being able to listen to people who are, working day to day in different areas of the business. I just think having those listening to voices and just communicating. So people, it happens so often that the top table forget to tell everybody else what they've talked about. It's like it works both ways and it's all a big bowl of spaghetti again, but communication across teams, communication.
Yeah, and finding, a way to give younger people or less experienced people, I mean, they're not necessarily young in age, but perhaps they've, changed careers, things like that, but giving them an opportunity to feel that they have a voice is so important. And I think I interviewed my niece recently who did an internship at Disney Plus for a year. So she's just gone back to finish her last year of university. And she was talking about how she did feel she had a voice, even though she was, the less experienced person around that table. They were very good at kind of encouraging that and allowing everyone to have that time. But I mean, I remember the start of my career, I probably would have felt like my opinion isn't going to be as valid as others round the table, or, they've got so much more knowledge than me. How would I, have anything to add to this conversation? And it's really important that organisations find a way to give everyone that voice, regardless of level of experience.
Yeah. And I think also if you are less experienced, sometimes you can feel like you don't want to say something because it might be wrong or you're worried about making a mistake. So I think that culture of, I mean, and it's not a particularly nice way of saying it, but like nobody died. Like as long as nobody's died, then it's okay that you've made a mistake. And it's like, having that culture where mistakes are and it really welcome. Like you're not going to be made to feel silly if you've suggested something that, the more experienced people in the room are like, wow, what's that about? But, just having that culture of mistakes are fine and we've got your back, whatever happens, I think is so, so, so valuable. And it's so valuable for building people's confidence.
Yeah. You've got to, I mean, if you don't make mistakes, you'll never learn. So I think it's Richard Branson said to his daughter when she got really great GCSE results, he would almost seem disappointed. And I'm sure I read it in a LinkedIn post she put on once, that she was like, why is he disappointed? He always almost was like, well, pass everything. And actually by failing something, it would have given her the experience of that failure and to learn and move on from that. And I thought that kind of stuck with me. So that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
But, and perhaps it's because I know he, failed himself, and therefore he probably feels that's part of the driving force of what he's then gone on to do. Finally, what makes you happy at work?
I think what makes me happy at work is when I can see that the team around me feels like they are working within psychological safety. So
Right. Yeah.
that means that they are free and happy to use their voice. They're not going to get shot down for coming up with an idea. They are not going to be made to feel ashamed for making a mistake or saying the wrong thing or not quite nailing it in a pitch or something like that. It's okay. Like, humans are not robots. Like, it's okay not to quite get it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really makes me happy actually when you're in, maybe it's a high pressure situation. Maybe you've got a big client call and there's a few of you or you're going to a client meeting or something and somebody slightly slips up, and it's so amazing when your teammates, you just watch them catch them. Like, you literally, like, one of them drops a ball and everybody drops a ball. And the magical moment is when you just watch it happen. The ball, it's not a real ball. The what's the word I'm looking? Yeah, the metaphorical. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The metaphorical ball rolls off the table slowly, and you just watch one of the teammates catch it. And it's even better when it's one of the teammates that wouldn't naturally be in that role. Like, it's just so beautiful when that happens. And then you just witness sometimes it happens that you witness the client notice that happen. The client notices that somebody dropped a ball and someone unexpected caught it. And then you notice that the client goes, I want to be on their team. Like, that team has got each other's back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is something special. And that's happened to me over and over again. And I've been so lucky to be part of just such amazing teams. And when you interview the clients, why do you work with us? Because we want to be on your team, because you've got each other's backs and you don't let each other drop balls. Like, you just catch them. That makes me happy at work.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Meghan. It has been really insightful to hear all of your wisdom and experience. I'm sure we'll continue to kind of hear great things on LinkedIn and see where your next bit of your journey goes. So, thank you for sharing today and giving up your time.
No problem at all. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to ISME Insights, brought to you by ISME People, your B Corp talent partner in marketing, CRM and digital. We hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights you can take away for your business and career. To learn more about how we help organisations with end-to-end talent solutions, visit ismepeople.com. Don't forget to like this episode and follow the podcast for more conversations with leaders across marketing, digital and CRM and the wider business world. We'll be back soon with more conversations to spark ideas and action. Thank you.